This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So the first topic which we are going to see it on the AWS is EC2. So the abbreviation of EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud. So EC2 is nothing but on the entire AWS service, the place or the service where I'm going to create a machine is on the EC2. So before 2 years to 3 years back, there was a two classification with respect to creating the instances. One is a classic model and another one is a VPC model. So the difference between these two people are, consider if I'm creating a two machines in a classic model, even though if those two machines are running in the same region, same physical server, if two persons wants to communicate with each other, that can be done only with the public IP. So with respect to the IP, there are two types of IP address. One is a public IP and another one is a private IP. So public IP is being used to communicate with the different network people, and private IP is being used to communicate with the same network people. So how can we identify the public or private is? Go to Chrome browser, type what is my IP. The IP which you are getting is said to be a public IP. At the same time, open the command prompt and type it as ipconfig. So this IP is said to be the private IP. If we four people are running, working together in the same office, but we are located differently. So I'm located in Chennai and you people are located in somewhere in India. But all the four people are working for the same company. We are connected to the VPN. So all the four devices, or all the four laptops can be communicated via this IP. But consider we are located in the same place now, but we are using a different network. For example, I'm using my mobile network and you are using your mobile hotspot, and same like all the people. Even though if you are physically available next to us, since both are running in a different network, that could be communicated only with the public IP. So that's the difference between public IP and the private IP. So public IP is being used to communicate with the different network people, and private IP is being communicated with the same network people. So if I'm creating a new machines in two machines in the classic model, and if the two machines are running the same physical server, that will be communicated only with the public IP. So the disadvantages of using the communication with the public IP is, so even though if it's next to him, you will be searching across the globe and you'll be finding the next partner, whereas there will be some latency. So on the second disadvantage is the data transactions should be taken care only with the internet. So there are many chances of hacking the data. So these are the two main disadvantages of using the communication with the public IP address. So if I'm creating a two machines in the VPC, before I'm creating a machine, I'm going to create a network. So after I'm creating the network, and if I'm creating a two machines, even though if those two machines are running the two different physical server, that can be communicated via private IP. The reason is both are running in the same network, and he could not search. He would not search out of that network. So the network is the boundary. So I would be getting the faster response. So these are the main differences between the communication with the public IP and the private IP, and similarly the classic and the VPC model. Any questions? All right. So apart from this, there are no other differences. So whatever the steps which I'm going to create it on the classic model, the same step would be available to create an instance on the VPC model. So whatever the OS available in the classic, the same operating system is available in the VPC. So now no need to worry about the classic part. Yes, please.
Okay, if a person, if two persons have the same private IP, same network, so one person can use the private network, private IP, and the connect, right? Means
Can you
two
please
people.
come again? Your voice is not clear, Bhagat. Actually, I'm getting some echo or some background crispy noises.
Let me try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, a little better.
So my question is, if two persons are on the same network, so they can access each other's machine using private IP and public IP both.
Yeah, that's right. So anything is available.
Okay.
I mean, anything is possible. If both the persons are running with the same network, he can communicate with the public or private. Both are possible. But if two persons are running with a different network, they can able to communicate only with the public. They can never communicate with the private.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So for creating the EC2 instances, what and all the steps we would require is, so we would require these many steps: keeper, instances, volume, snapshot, security, BAM, and elastic. So the first part is keeper. So keeper is nothing but, consider you're about to purchase any laptop to any of the showroom, maybe HP or Dell showroom. So they have been kept many laptop on the display. Consider that in case if that display laptop is authenticated. So how you can able to get the username and the password is, you'll be checking with the salesperson or retailer. Hey man, please log into this laptop. I would like to check the performance and the behavior of this laptop. So similarly, if you're creating a new machine in AWS cloud, you doesn't have any point of contact to get the username and the password of the machine which you are creating. So that's the reason AWS is giving the keeper service. So there are two types of a keeper. One is a .pem file and .ppk file. So whereas the PEM is being used for a Windows machine and PPK is for the Linux machine. That's it. So if I'm creating the keeper, that particular keeper would be downloaded. And if I'm opening that keeper, I can see some jumbled characters, kind of a cryptography would be used. So from the jumbled characters, I'll be getting the password of the machine, which I'm going to create it on the AWS. So to be a single definition, keeper is being used to get the authentication of the instance which you're creating on AWS. So now you may get a question. So now consider I'm going to create a 10 Windows machine. So do I need to create a 10 keeper? It is not required. Using a single keeper, you can be able to get the password for 10 Windows machines. And the next question would be whether all the 10 Windows password would be the same. No, all the 10 password would be the isolator. So using a one keeper, you can be able to get the password for number of machines, and those passwords will not be same. It will be having the unique value. So for a Windows, you'll be using the PEM file to get the password. And as of for AWS, we don't have the password for the Linux machine. So instead of a password, we'll be using the PPK file. So the same use case is applicable for the Linux environment as well. So using a one PPK file, you can able to get the establishment of a SSH connection of many Linux machine which you are creating. So this is about the keep. It is being used as an authentication for the machine which you are creating on AWS. So the next one is said to be instances. So when you take upon instances, there are two flavors available. One is the Windows and another one is the Linux. So Unix is not available in any of the cloud provider. IBM Bluemix is still developing it, but I'm not sure when it is going to be released. So as of now, only Windows and Linux are available. So when you look upon AWS, only servers are available. So with respect to the operating system, there are two types. One is a server and another one is a client. So the server which are used for using to deploy a web application, and the client is being used for our personal use for official use, like Windows 7, XP, Vista 7, 8, 8.110. Those would be said as the clients. And servers is nothing but 2003, 8, 8 to 12, 12 to 16, and 19 is the latest version of Windows Server. And similarly, when you look upon a Linux, there are many flavors are available like Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, Red Hat, SUSE, or Oracle Linux, OpenSUSE, many things are there. So it depends upon the customer or application requirement. We can choose the preferred operating system and do the creation process. Now you may get a question. Is there any separate process or two different types of process to create instances for Windows and Linux? No. So instance creation is common on AWS. Then the only difference between the Windows and Linux is for a Windows we'll be using the PEM file, and for Linux we'll be using the PPK file. That's the only difference. But apart from that, the instance creation is common in AWS. So the next one is said to be a volumes. So volume is
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
So I have a question here. I mean, for example, if we are creating a window machine, so I mean, licenses and all. I mean, because if we are going with, for example, a customer wants only Windows 7 machines. Where do we specify the licenses for these windows, or maybe he wants some additional software to be installed, like Microsoft Word or any other special software he wants. So how do we do that?
So
First
it
is
is
like
like a
licenses.
common.
How we do manage licenses? Yeah.
Yeah, good question. So consider that creating an instance is nothing but you are purchasing a laptop from the showroom. So
Okay.
during the laptop purchase, the OS license is comes along with that. They agree.
Okay.
So for example, you are purchasing a Windows 10 laptop from the Dell showroom. So the OS license comes along with that. If you need any additional software like Office 365 or antivirus, you need to pay additionally and you need to get it from the store. And you will be doing the installation on your own by logging to the computer and opening the browser, downloading the software or putting the CDBs and doing the installation. The same parallel example can be taken on the server. So during the server creation, instance creation, the OS would be available inbuilt along with the license. If you want any additional software, you can open the browser inside that machine and you can purchase that software. You can download and install it on your own. The same case.
Okay. One more follow-up question. I'm really sorry. Asking this question.
No problem,
these questions.
No problem. Please go ahead.
For example, window licenses is like I purchase a license. It's a lifetime thing, right? I purchase a license for 7,000. For example, Windows 7. I go to Amazon. I purchase a Windows 7 for 10,000, and it's for always. Throughout life, I can use that license. But here, as we know, cloud is like pay as per you use. So these licensing fees, are they also like pay per use? If you are using it for 1 month, I will be charged some portion of it, or like for a Windows, this is like you have to pay the license fee, full license fee. How it works?
Regarding the licensing part, so that comes along with the OS. They are not charging separately for the license. For example, I'm going to create some 2012 R2 server, and I'm using the configuration like a 2 core processor and 4 GB of RAM, and I'm using a 100 GB of hard disk. Just for an example, I'm saying. So this would be considered as a cost. So for example, that would be cost around 0.12 cents per hour. So that would be considered on hourly basis. So there is no separate or additional cost for the license. Got it?
Okay. Yeah.
So and the next one is said to be a volumes. So volumes and snapshot together is said to be a elastic block store. So volumes is nothing but kind of hard disk, which I said earlier. So now consider that you are about to purchase a laptop, and you are during the purchase itself you are defining the configuration. I need around 500 GB of hard disk. So once you have purchased a laptop and once you come back to your home, you can open the My Computer and you can see the 500 GB of hard disk, whatever this size which you have specified during the purchase. So similarly, during the instance creation, if I'm specifying like a C drive, I need a 50 GB and D drive, I need 100 GB. Once I take a remote control of the machine which I created, I can see C drive separately as for 50 GB and D drive separately for 100 GB. So this is applicable up to 2012 R2. That means for a 5 operating system alone, 2003, 8, 8 R2, 12, 12 R2. For these 5 operating system alone, if you are specifying how much hard disk size do you require for this instance during the instance creation itself, that would be automatically mounted and taken partitioned by the AWS itself. Once you have done with the creation of the instance, and you are, you need additional 500 GB of hard disk. Maybe you have purchased a laptop and you have come back to the home. And after you purchase a laptop, you feel that I need additional 500 GB of hard disk. So what you guys would be doing is you'll be visiting nearby service center or any kind of a shop store, and you'll be purchasing the external hard disk for 500 GB of size, and you'll be you'll be inserting that USB drive into that USB port, and you'll be doing the mounting and partition manually. So similarly, during the purchase, if you specify, that will be automatically mounted and taken care by AWS. Once the instance is created, if you need any additional of hard disk sizes, that you need to do the attachment, mounting, partition manually. For example, after I'm created with the EC2 instance, I need an additional 100 GB of hard disk. I need to create this 100 GB manually. I need to attach this 100 GB manually to the machine, and I need to do the mounting process manually, and I need to do the partition manually. So for example, here I have created 100 GB of hard disk. So I have done the partition E drive as 50 GB and F drive as 50 GB. I need to do this step. So whatever the steps which I said now, during the instance creation, if I'm specifying the hard disk size, that would be automatically mounted and partitioned by taken care by AWS. After instance creation, if I'm specifying any additional volume, that needs to be taken care by myself regarding the partition, attaching, mounting, everything. So now for all the Linux operating system, and for 2016-19 OS, even though if you're creating or specifying the hard disk during the instance creation or after instance creation, you need to do everything manually. So that is the process. So that is the OS behavior. So till the instance gets created, even though if you're specifying the hard disk size, you need to do the mounting process manually. So that's the behavior of operating system of 2016-19 and all the Linux. So you can take this as a parallel example of during the purchase or after the purchase. So for 2016-19 for all Linux, during the purchase of a laptop also if you define, or after the purchase of a laptop also if you define, means you need to do everything manually. But after 2012 R2, if you are defining the configuration during the purchase itself, that will be taken care by themselves. After creation, if you are defining any additional storage, that you need to take it by you. So the same concept is applicable. Now I have attached the 100 GB of hard disk, but I have partitioned E drive as 50 GB and F drive as 50 GB. Now it doesn't mean that E drive is a one volume and F drive is a one volume. Together it's said to be a single volume. For AWS, they could not able to recognize. So E drive, they have partitioned E drive, F drive, G drive, they could not able to recognize that. As of them, it is being single volume. So they could not able to categorize that as an individual size. But if I'm going to say it as a D drive as 100 GB, I can say the D drive is a single volume because that 100 GB of size has been already utilized by the D drive itself. So that is said to be a single volume. So this is about the volumes. And the next one is said to be a snapshot. To be a single definition, snapshot is nothing but a cloned copy or a shadow copy of the single volume is said to be a snapshot. Now consider I have some requirement. So I have some around 100 GB of data at my local. I want to copy and paste this 100 GB of data into 11 machines in AWS. So initially I have done a copy paste manually from my laptop to first machine in AWS, which has taken almost 18 to 19 hours of time to do the copy paste. Now I want the same data to be available on the remaining 10 machines. To do this activity, there are two options. The first option is, again, I need to copy the 100 GB of data from my laptop to all the 10 machines, which may take around 1 week of time to complete this action. Or else, is there any other better solution other than this? So the second option is, I have already copied the data to the machine 1 on AWS instance. From that machine 1 to, I can copy the same data to the remaining 10 machines. So this may take around 3 days of time. Apart from this, do I have any better solution? So I can go for the snapshot. So now consider I have 100 GB of data from my local and I have copied to the first machine E drive 50 and F drive 50. I have copied this data. Now instead of doing the copying and pasting manually, I'm going to take a Xerox or photocopy or a shadow copy of this volume. So that shadow copy is named as a snapshot. So it is a kind of a source file and I could not able to attach that snapshot directly to the machine. So it is kind of a source file. From that source file, I can create a new volume. After I'm creating the new volume, whatever the data available in the existing volume, the same data would be available in the new volume. So once the volume is created, I can attach the new volume to the respective machine which I'm needed. That is said to be a snapshot. Now, once you've taken the snapshot, if you are adding any new data on the E drive or F drive, that will not be synchronized to the snapshot either. And that could not be synchronized from the snapshot, from the volume which you're creating from the snapshot. So that would be isolated. You can take a parallel example of taking a Xerox. So consider you're taking the original license of, Xerox of the original license. So once you have taken a Xerox of the original license, and if you're scribbling something on the original license, that could not be synchronized to the Xerox paper. If you want to do the replication, again you need to take a Xerox. Similarly, whatever the data which has been having till I'm getting the snapshot, the same data would be available on the snapshot. Once I capture the snapshot, and whatever the new data I'm adding on the original volume, that could not be synchronized to the snapshot either. That could not be synchronized from the volume which I'm creating from the snapshot. And second condition is, I could not able to take a Xerox of I could not able to take a snapshot of a E drive, or I could not able to take a snapshot of a F drive, because as I said earlier, 100 GB is a single volume. During the partition, I have been categorized into E drive and F drive, whereas the AWS could not able to recognize that. So AWS is allowed to do the capture of a snapshot only to the volume, not to the drives, until and unless if the drive is completely mounted to the complete sizes. Now, if I want to take the snapshot of a D drive, I can able to take. The reason I have created 100 GB volume of in AWS, and I have utilized all the 100 GB into D drive itself. Now I can take a D drive alone as a snapshot, but I cannot able to take a E drive or F drive alone in the snapshot because it has been partitioned into E and F from the single volume. So I can be able to take a Xerox of a single volume. Clear? Any questions? All. So the next one is said to be a security groups. So security group is nothing but kind of a firewall. If we four people are speaking with each other, means first of all I need to know your name. So once I know your name, do I have the capability to speak? No. I need some language to do the data transfer, like English or Tamil or Telugu, whatever. So similarly, if two computers, two servers, or one computer or printer or whatever it is, if those people want to communicate with each other, means first of all what they need to know is the IP address. If they know the IP address, will they able to communicate? No. They need a protocol to do the communication as like a language, like TCP, RDP, FTP, HTTP, HTTPS, many protocols are there. So those protocols could be defined in the security group. That means to whom I need to speak, to whom I should not speak. So that is the reason I have said this as a firewall. Now consider I'm creating a new Windows machine in AWS. So the default port number of Windows machine is 3389. So if I want to access that machine only from my laptop, I can go with the MyAPI. So even though if you guys know the username, password, and IP address of the machine which I'm creating on AWS, you guys doesn't have any permission to access that machine because it has a permission to access only from a laptop. So that is the reason it is named as a MyAPI. So the next one is anywhere. So whoever knows this IP address, username, password across the globe, everyone can access without any limitations or restrictions because I have been defined the security group firewall as anywhere. So whoever knows the credentials, everyone can access. That is said to be anywhere. So and custom is nothing but on specific ranges. For example, here I have some router here. If I'm providing the router IP address to the custom IP, so whoever connected to my router Wi-Fi, they can able to access. And you people are, you people are turned on your laptop here, but you guys are using your own mobile data network. You could not able to access. The reason is you are connected with a different network. So I'm providing the permission to a specific ranges. So whoever available under the network ranges, they can able to access. That is said to be the custom. So custom means to specific ranges. Anywhere means across the globe without any restrictions or limitation. And my IP is only to my laptop. So these are the three types of the security. So and the next one is said to be the AMI. So AMI and the snapshot belong to the same functionality. So snapshot belongs to a Xerox of a single volume, whereas the AMI belongs to a Xerox of a multiple volume. That is said to be AMI. So as like a snapshot, I have another use cases for AMI. So consider C is a different volume, D is a different volume, and E is a different volume. In these three different volumes, I have installed Facebook, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn application. I want the same kind of machine. I want the same kind of data machine for a 10 count. So there are two options to achieve this. So I need to create another 10 machines manually. Again, I need to install these three applications manually in all the 10 machines, and I need to use it. Or else I can capture the snapshot of three volumes separately, and I need to build this machine from the three volumes snapshots. So these are the two use cases, which would take some time to do this. So instead of doing that, let me capture the snapshot of let me capture the image of a complete infrastructure itself. That is set in AMI. So C, D, E, F, G, whatever the volumes are available inside that machine. And if I want the same kind of machine, so instead of I'm taking the snapshot for an individual volume, or instead of I'm duplicating this machine by installing the software again and again, I can take the complete infrastructure as a Xerox. That is set in AMI, Amazon machine image. I'm taking the machine itself as an image. So there are two advantages of using the AMI and the snapshot. So consider you people are my customer, and you guys have given this task to me, like install the three applications. You can take 1 month of time. So I have taken 1 month of time, and I have done with the installation. While I'm delivering it to you people, you are saying that, hey man, why you have created the machine in the Virginia region? So Virginia region is nothing but one of the data center available in Virginia. Virginia is one type of state or country in US. So in that Virginia region, I have created a machine and installed this application. And while I'm delivering to you, you are recognizing that you don't need it in a Virginia region. You need it in a Mumbai region. So Mumbai in India. So instead of I'm creating a new machine in a Mumbai region, I'm doing the installation of these three applications again by taking 1 month of time. Already I have the setup, but that setup is running in Virginia. That's the case. So instead of I'm doing the repeating the same activity, I'm going to capture that Virginia setup as an AMI. That AMI can be copied to the Mumbai region. From that Mumbai region, I can directly create a machine. So what I'm trying to say is, AWS AMI can be copied and pasted within AWS regions. That is the first advantage of using an AMI. And the second advantages of using an AMI is, so these steps or these applications should be installed on your AWS account by creating the machine. But unexpectedly, I have done the installation on my AWS account. So instead of I'm repeating the same activity on your AWS account, the better solution is already the setup is running in my AWS account. I'm going to capture that setup as an AMI. That AMI can be transferred to your account. Once it has transferred from your account, I can directly create a machine. So the second advantage is what I'm trying to say is, the AMI can be copied and pasted or transferred within the AWS account holders. So these are the two advantages of AMI and the snapshot. So AMI and snapshot can be copied and pasted within AWS region plus within AWS account holders. So these are the two main advantages of using the AMI and the snapshot. So the last one is said to be the elastic API. So in a network term, it is said as a static API. In AWS, that static API is said to be elastic API. That's it. So with respect to the IP address, as I said earlier, there are two types of IP address. One is a public API and another one is a private API. So the state of those two IP addresses is said to be static and dynamic. So how can you identify whether it's a static or dynamic? So maybe after this class, open the mobile phone, turn on the mobile data, and open the Chrome browser and type what is my IP. You'll be getting one IP address. On the same page, turn off the mobile data, turn it on again, refresh the browser. The IP will be changed. So that means it is said as a dynamic IP. So whenever you are doing some actions on the mobile device, like restarting the mobile phone or restarting the mobile data, the IP will be keep on changing. That will be said as a dynamic IP. If it is a static IP, the IP would never. So the IP would never get changed. That is said to be a static IP. So now you may get a question on which situation or on which use cases I need to use the static APIs. Maybe consider that you are deploying some application on AWS instances. So consider it's a 24/5 application. So only it can be accessed by the users from Monday to Friday. That's it. Now you have you have assigned that IP address to a example.com domain name, and you are given this example.com across the globe to the users. But it's a 24/5 application. So in order to save some cost during the weekends, so you're turning off that server by Friday evening. Once you turned off that server, whatever the IP address which is available on the Friday evening, that would be released. But for the Friday evening IP address only, I have assigned this domain name. Now it is Monday morning. I am starting the server, same server again. I will be getting the different IP address. So once the machine gets started, if the customer is accessing this application using this domain name, the application will not work. The reason, this DNS will search for the person, search for the IP address, which was stopped during the Friday night. But for the IP, that machine is not allocated. I'll be getting the different IP on Monday morning. So in order to make this application to work, what I need to do is, I need to give the updated IP address to my DNS provider. Hey man, please don't point to the Friday IP address because he is released from the mission. Moving forward for this week, you can point to this latest IP address which I received on the Monday morning. I need to do the same activity again and again by every week. So instead of a such action, do you have any better solution? I can go for the elastic API. That means a static API. So I'm creating a new instance and installing the application and doing every deployment, and then I have been allocated the elastic API. That elastic API is given to my DNS provider to assign the domain name. Once the domain name is assigned to the Elastic IP, even though if the machine is stopping and starting anytime, the IP would be stick to that machine. The IP would never get released until and unless we are doing it. So by Monday morning, if the customer is accessing the same application, the application will work without any manual intervention because the IP is stick to that particular machine. So that's the reason we are getting into the Elastic IP. It is one of the use cases why we are using the Elastic IP. Similarly, there are many use cases of using the Elastic IP. So this is about the cloud intervention. Any questions with it?
So just
Yeah, one question.
Yeah, one by one. Yeah, anyone. Yeah, please.
The question that I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Baba Sahib.
Okay. So regarding AMI, you said we can create a copy, we can create an image, we can create a copy of the entire infrastructure, right? Using AMIs.
Yeah, AMI. It's not AMS, AMI. Using AMI, we can create a complete infrastructure as an image.
Correct. Yeah. All the application, whatever are installed, what we installed in the original AMI, will be copied to the new image as well. Right?
Exactly. We are duplicating. Exactly. We'll be having the same data, everything same.
What about the username and user?
Everything is same. Everything is same.
Users also will be created the same.
Yeah, the users, everything would be having the same value. Username and the password. Because the username and password would be allocated on the OS track. So we are capturing the OS also as an image. So whatever the password which you have used on the original machine, the same password will be available on the machine which you are creating from the VM.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Manika.
Charges for this static and dynamic IP are different or same? I mean, what
This
AWS
static
charges
IP.
for having?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Good question. So for a static AP is not being charged until and unless if you are not using it. For example, if I'm creating a new machine in AWS, they are giving the public IP. That's it. So if you are allocating the static IP and if you have associated that static IP to any of the machine, it is not being charged. But if you have created the static IP and you didn't assign to any of the machine, it is still available in your AWS account and you didn't assign to any of the machine, that would be charged. If you have assigned to any machine, it is not going to be charged. If you don't assign to any machine, that will be charged. So that is how the static IP is being charged.
And once I assigned it and user start accessing it, I mean, for example, if example.com only, I mean, let's take that example, and I have now assigned a dynamic static IP, I mean, the elastic IP to this example.com. So now every time a user hits on this example.com, so I mean, I know this is like pay per use. So this dynamic IP is now getting used, right? Sorry, the static IP is now getting used. So I will be charged every time a user hits me. I will be charged, right?
I mean, there are two use cases. During the instance created and no static IP. You are not created the static IP. You will not be charged. Because you didn't create a static IP itself. And another use case is instance created, static IP created. And assign the static IP. No charge. This is second use cases. And the third use case is instance created and static IP also created. Not assign the static IP to instance. Charged. So these are the three use cases. If you created the static IP and if you assign to any machines, it will not be charged. If you are not assigned to any machines, that would be charged.
Yeah. And now, I mean, just as you explained that AMI thing, like if I want from Virginia to shift my data center to Mumbai, and in that case, I mean, if I had used this static IP thing, so I mean, will it remain the same? I mean, or the IPs will
No, no,
also
no.
change? I mean, being a
So
static
as you
IP, will
know,
it change or what will happen?
no, no, no. As you know very well that the public IP belongs to only one. It could not be a duplicate. Similarly, for a one machine, I can assign only one public IP, as like a phone number, mobile phone number. So for a one SIM card, I can allocate only one mobile phone number. I cannot be able to use the two mobile phone number on the same SIM card or vice versa. The same number for a two SIM cards. Okay. So similarly, you can consider for the public IP. That means elastic IP. So if you have assigned the elastic IP to one machine, that is fixed. You could not able to use the same IP to another machine until unless you are releasing from that existing machine. So if you are taking the AMI and if you are transferring to the Mumbai, you are transferring only the cloned copy. You are not transferring the original machine. So the original machine remains same on the Virginia region. You are just duplicating the machine and shifting to the Mumbai region. It doesn't mean that the same machine has been transferred to the Mumbai. So the static IP
In
will
that
be
case, I mean,
the same.
the DNS will be required to be updated, right?
Yeah,
because
if
now
you are
it
about
has
to
to
use,
route
for
calls
example,
to
you have
Mumbai.
created a machine in Virginia. Yeah, I got your question. So, for example, you have created a machine in Virginia. You have deployed an application. You have created the static API, and you have assigned the static API as example.com, and you have given to your customers. Now, later you felt that due to some latency, all my customers are in India. So, why do I need to use that machine on a Virginia region? So, I want that machine to be transferred to Mumbai. So what you're doing is you are, you are taking the snapshot or AMI of the particular machine from a Virginia, and you are moving that AMI to a Mumbai, and you are creating a new machine. So once you have created a new machine in a Mumbai region, you could not be able to use the same static API of the Virginia region. So what you need to do is, yeah, you cannot be able to use that because it is already utilized for the Virginia machine. So what you need to do is, you want to scrap that Virginia and you want the Mumbai to be available. So again, before assigning a domain name, you'll be creating a new elastic API on the Mumbai region, and you'll be assigning that elastic API to the DNS, and you'll be starting the mission giving to the customer. Now the Virginia is closed now.
Correct.
It is no use. So this you can do.
Correct. And this, yeah, and this AMI thing also takes care of the database. I mean, migrations and all. I mean, if I'm migrating my machine from Virginia to Mumbai, so this image or the clone that we make, it also automatically includes the databases, or we need to specify that, okay, this is this much of data that has been in this database, we need to transport it to Mumbai.
Yeah, of course. So AWS would never consider what is data inside it. So if you are taking an image, whatever the data inside that particular volume, everything would be cloned. For example, you have a 500 GB of hard disk, and all the 500 GB of hard disk, you are having a movie. Okay. So by closing your eyes, you are doing a control A from the control A, control C from the external hard disk, and pasting it in the your local drive. So the same data will be copied. Similarly, so if you're taking the AMI, AWS could not recognize that what and dot data is available, how much storage they are using. They could never see that. They are capturing the complete data inside that particular volume as a Xerox, and they are moving and creating a new machine from the AMI.
Okay, got it.
So now I will show you how to create a new AWS account. So maybe from tomorrow we can, I will show you how to create a new instance, and what are the action which you have done now, like a snapshot, volumes, everything that could be taken care by tomorrow. So for creating the new AWS account, I will show you. Open the new browser and type the same keyword like AWS free tier. So the same three keyword AWS free tier. Now click on that second link like aws.amazon.com/free. Click on that second link. So click on create a free account. So there are 5 steps to create a new free account. It has been free for 1 year. So you can provide your email address, password, confirm password, how your account should be, and you do the next step. You'll be asked for the contact address, and the third step would be you'll be asked for the debit card details. Please make sure that whatever the contact address which you are giving to on the second step, the same contact address is given in the banking on the third step. So if you do the same, the account would be created immediately. If there is some mismatch with the bank account address and your contact address which you are giving here, it may take some time, up to 24 hours of time to create an account. And once you provide the debit card details, once you click on continue, you will be charged 2 rupees just to verify whether whatever the bank account details which you have provided is valid. But the 2 rupees would be refunded, no need to worry. On the fourth step, you will be getting the phone verification call. So you'll be getting a call to your mobile phone. In the mobile phone, they will be saying the phone number that you need to be type it from the browser, or else in the browser they will be giving you or displaying the phone number that you need to confirm with the mobile phone number. And on the fifth step, make sure you are choosing this as a personal account, not the professional one. And make sure you're not providing any PAN card details. And make sure you are doing the support plan as a basic. There are 4 support plans: basic, developer, business, and enterprise. So make sure you are choosing the basic plan. So after completing the step 5, the account will be created. So once the account gets created, go to Google, type AWS console, sign in. So you can open the first thing, console.aws.com, aws.amazon.com/console. So this is my console. So once you have provided the username and the password, and once you log in, so this is the services available in AWS. So these services is one department or one domain actually. Analytics is a different domain, machine learning is a different domain, and blockchain is a different domain, and Internet of Things is a different domain. So to be simple, we are going to cover the infrastructure and platform services to do the deployment of a web application. So there is no 2 different accounts for a free tier and payable. For both, it is a common account for both the free tier and the payable. So I will let you know what are all the free tier services and make sure you are creating only those free tier services. So before we getting to the AWS, please keep in mind that there are 3 rules in the AWS. The first rule is whatever the services which I'm saying to create, please make sure you are creating only those free tier services. That is the first rule. And the second rule is, even though if you're creating any services in AWS, once you're done with your practice session, before you're doing the signing out, make sure you are deleting all the services which you have created for the practice session. So first rule is make sure you are using only free tier services, and the second rule is make sure you are cleaning up all the services. Cleaning up in a sense, deleting all the services which you have created on the practice session. And third step is, even though if you are deleting or not deleting the services, by next day morning, log into the AWS console and check the billing whether you have been charged for anything. So the reason why I'm asking you to check by tomorrow morning is, whatever the services which I'm creating on the AWS, that will be charged only by next day. So how can we check the next day billing is, click on this option under your name, go to my billing dashboard. So in this my billing dashboard, you can find for what services it is being charged. In case if you have chosen instead of a free tier services, if you have chosen any payable services, and if you forgot to delete it, by next day morning you can log in and see, oh man, I forgot to delete it. Oh god, it's not a free tier, it's a payable. Okay, thank god I have seen now. Okay, I will delete that services. So you will be getting a lesser charges. So for example, I have been charged 19 rupees INR. So I want to know why this 19 rupees is charged. Click on this month to end spend by service, the bill details. Under the bill details, so you can see the list of options. So for instance, it's being charged for EC2. Under EC2, which region? Virginia region. Under Virginia, for which services it is being charged? For the NAT gateway. So in case this NAT gateway is being charged, it is not free services, it is payable services. In case by yesterday I have created this NAT gateway and I forgot to delete it, it's a payable services. By seeing the services by today morning, I can delete it immediately. So I can save some money. So for this 8 hours alone, I mean for yesterday practice alone, I need to pay. That's it. If I've been forgot to see this by tomorrow morning, and it would be keep on charging on hourly basis. When you look upon this billing information at the month end, you'll be shocked. Almost it would be charged around 4,000, 8,000, 10,000. So that's the reason I'm asking you to people to check this monitoring very carefully. So these are the 3 rules. Make sure you are creating only free tier services. Make sure you are deleting the services after your practice session. And by tomorrow morning, ensure if it's being charged for anything. And these are the multiple data centers available in the AWS. So in India, we can find only Mumbai region. So maybe in another 2 to 3 months, there are, I mean, they are launching a new data center in Hyderabad, but it is not officially confirmed with the official date, but it is going to be released within 3 months. So then we can find the 2 data center in India. So these and all are 2, 3, I mean, different data centers or regions are available in the AWS. Okay. So by tomorrow morning, we will be creating on the first machine with the 2019 OS, and we will be attaching a new volume and mounting it manually. And I'll be doing the partition, everything manually, and adding some folders. And then I'll be capturing that volume as a snapshot. From the snapshot, I'll be creating a new volume. And from that volume, I'm going to attach on the same machine, and I'll be ensuring both the volume have the same data. And next part is I'll be allocating the Elastic IP and giving to them. Once I am done with the Elastic IP, I'll be checking whether if I'm stopped the machine, the IP is getting released. And then I'm detaching both the volumes, and I'll be creating some sample photos in another volume and capturing that complete machine itself as an EML. And I'll be moving that machine to another region and ensuring by creating the machine in 2 regions and ensure both the data having the same. And along with that, I'll be showing you how to do the troubleshooting if you're unable to take a RTP, or if the boot diagnostic logs is proper, if you want any instance screenshot, or if you want to decrease or increase the configuration, how to change the password, how to create a user account. That could be defined by, I mean, that could be explained by tomorrow. Okay. So you guys have any questions, or you understanding the mode of teaching?
Just in case if we forget, if we create an instance and forget to check it, so is there a way to get alerts or something so that to the mail or
we can configure the alerts, but still the alerts is being charged.
Alerts will be charged.
Yeah, alerts will be charged. So it is the best practices. I mean, on the production environment at all, they will be configuring the alerts only. But still, we are going for the practical. I mean, for a basic free trial session, it is recommended to take care by ourselves of those services.
Okay.
But to answer your question, yes, that's possible. We can do the alerts.
Okay. So alerts can come to mobile or email, both, right?
Yeah, email or SMS is possible. Yeah.
SMS is possible. Okay.
Yes, Manika.
Yeah. My question was like, I mean, did I join this course late or something, or is it the first class only?
It is the first class. It is the first class actually. And even Baba Sahib is joined after you. So I need to complete the cloud introduction to it separately. After the cloud introduction, which I've taken you on Sunday or Friday, something like this. So this is the first topic.
And one more, okay. And one more question, Sarvan. I mean, in AWS, I mean, the first thing that, I mean, whenever we open some book, I mean, I found that the very first thing that they showed us was AWS budgeting. I mean, where we can budgeting and all that. So will that be covered by you? I mean, AWS budgeting, how to set budgets?
Explaining you the pricing. Yeah, I'll be explaining you the pricing.
Okay.
So we can connect tomorrow at the same time in 12 o'clock. So I'll be covering the practical session, as I said earlier, on the email by creating a volume snapshot everything. Okay. So you can ping me if you guys have any questions. You can, I will be sharing you the recording again. And Baha Sahib, if possible, you can send me your email address, whereas I can share you the course content and user materials and this recording video, everything.
Yeah, sure. I'll just drop it into the chat.
Yeah, you can make a note of my number. It's 9087. Yeah, okay. I have received this email address. Okay, thanks. I'll get it from you.
Okay.
So we can meet tomorrow. Any questions, Kamachi? Do you have any other questions?
I don't have any questions. It's clear.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Okay, we can meet tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.